breadcrumbing, one of the worst dating behaviors out there. What is breadcrumbing? What do our viewers need to know? And what can you do about it? Thank you so much for joining us again on Second Act TV. Once again, I'm so happy to welcome Joni Caldwell Lerner to Second Act, the author of Stop, Look, Choose Your Journey to Peace and Freedom. Joni, thanks for being here.
Oh, as always, thank you.
Well, always glad to have you back on, Joni. Today, a topic that I think is quite concerning to a lot of the daters out there. It's being written about all over again, and that is breadcrumbing, one of the worst dating behaviors out there, other than perhaps ghosting. So I want to talk about that today. What is breadcrumbing? What do our viewers need to know? And what can you do about it?
I too think it's a really important topic. It may sound innocuous, breadcrumbing, Hansel and Gretel, the whole thing, but it is a very serious behavior that sometimes people who don't do it or haven't experienced it don't understand what's happening to them, and they get hooked in.
Yeah, exactly. I'll give the formal definition here just so you know what we're talking about. It's breadcrumbing is a form of manipulation. It occurs when someone pretends they are interested in pursuing or developing a sincere relationship when in fact they really have no interest. So let's talk about something specific, some of the specific signs. First one here is inconsistent contact, that maybe you were texting with a potential partner nonstop yesterday, but today it's crickets.
Let's talk about that, because when you're talking about somebody who's texting, you're getting these dopamine hits. Oh, he texted me. She texted me. And the brain goes, yay, and it lights up and it does all this thing, and then they go away. So it begins this cycle of almost like addiction, this endorphin hit, this dopamine hit. You probably maybe have known somebody who is in a relationship and you're going, I would never accept that behavior. How could they stay for that? What is going on? There is this thing, this physiological reaction to this. So there are many layers to what's going on.
Well, and the inconsistent contact, especially, and of course we're talking about dating, and you get excited, that somebody who you like, especially, oh, they texted that this, and you're waiting for that next text, and like you said, you get that dopamine going, then nothing. So it just gets you. It can drive you crazy, really, if you let it. Which is, we're going to talk about what to do about it, but it is something that just tears at your self-esteem.
Yes, especially if you're an anxious attachment style. And if you can look up all kinds of stuff in YouTube on anxious attachment, secure attachment, avoidant attachment. Really do some studying if you feel like, oh, that sounds like me. So you anxiously need to have contact, or else you don't feel okay. You don't feel centered. You don't feel like everything's right with the world.
Well, and by inconsistent contact, we don't mean that he has to text you back in 5 minutes or something like that, but something on just in a reasonable amount of time, not a week. It may not be a bad person. There is that possibility that somebody who's breadcrumbing you is so screwed up themselves, or they have issues. I shouldn't say screwed up, but that they're not doing it on purpose necessarily. They're not doing it to feed their own ego.
Consciousness levels are different for everyone. Some people have zero idea about how their behavior, their words are affecting other people. They have zero idea. There's no consciousness there. So that's part of this. There could be just unconscious people that are doing this, and they've always done it, and their parents did it, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
But you can stop the cycle.
Yeah, right. You can stop it. And we're going to, for the sake of this conversation, we are going to assume that this is happening.
Correct.
Yeah. Here's another sign: non-committal responses. That's another good one. That if you find yourself stuck having surface level conversations, that could be a sign of breadcrumbing. It says here, when you ask about the future or their intentions, they may give non-committal answers that don't provide clarity.
Right. And so here's what happens. If they're a serial dater, they don't want intimacy. They just want what they want. They're going to go from person to person. I'm not even going to call them relationships, from
Mm-hmm.
person to person. So they're really not going to care if you don't get what you need. So now you come to them and you say, my needs aren't being met. I really do need to talk about things more than just surface things.
Right.
The fear for that person coming to that person is that the person is now going to leave them.
Mm-hmm.
They might, but if that's
Mm-hmm.
true, then let them. Do not avoid asking for what you need
Mm-hmm.
in fear of them leaving. Because if that's the reason they leave, then please let them leave.
Yeah, no, and exactly. And you deserve to know. You deserve clarity.
Yes.
I mean, maybe not on the second date, but I mean, as you go along in this getting to know each other, you deserve clarity. It's another thing that drives you crazy, which is why this is a manipulation tactic.
So the two greatest dragons for the on the hero's journey, and everybody out there is on their own hero's journey.
Mm-hmm.
Everything boils down to the two dragons, and everybody has one or the other. And this is formed by the age of 7. It's abandonment or unworthiness. And you can trace back the person who stays with the breadcrumber. You can trace
Mm-hmm.
it back to one of those two.
That's interesting. I actually have never heard that. That's really, really interesting. Here's another sign. Channeling different personas. I thought this kind of hit home for me a little bit. Does a potential love interest, does a potential person you're dating feel different on the phone than they do in real life? Meaning that if you're texting, that you're involved in this wonderful, stimulating conversation, but in life, they're different there. That is a sign of breadcrumbing as well. I thought that was interesting. I
Interesting.
hadn't heard that.
Well, there's less intimacy and emotional connection in a text or an
Mm-hmm.
email, which can be curated. It can be fine tuned and honed. I actually dated someone, I've mentioned this before, and this makes sense as you're talking, was, oh my God, like, oh my God, this guy is amazing.
Yeah.
And then I met him in person and he was like, so I got to take the trash out. And now those things have to happen. Absolutely. But there was definitely a disconnect between the romantic guy in word, and I believe it was the same person, because sometimes it's not even the same person.
Yeah,
That's a whole
that's when they're
story.
scammers. Yeah. This
Yes.
is it's interesting. It has a similar situation where,
Mhm.
the texting, my God, I went into the night because it was
Yeah.
just so engaging. And then when we met in person, it wasn't anything close to that. Not even close. If again, and this is for you to recognize signs that you might be being breadcrumbed, because if you are, that's not a good thing. This is something you need to address or get your butt out of that relationship. Here's a bit of an obvious one though. If we're, we go along with it, if we really want this to work, and that's making last minute plans. That,
Mm.
instead of making plans in advance, someone sends you a last minute message asking you, what are you doing tonight?
Mhm. Mhm. Please don't call me every time on that day for that night, because it says that I'm an afterthought. You can do that once in a while if you get tickets to the World Series
Yeah.
or a great movie or
Yeah.
something's a spontaneous thing can be romantic too. But please show forethought that you're actually
Mm-hmm.
thinking about me, us
Yeah.
as a couple.
Well, and the issue, why would somebody do that? Well, obviously, either you're an afterthought, you're the lowest option.
Ooh, that
I mean,
hurts.
that's well, if it's last
True.
minute. I mean, like you said, there are some things that, hey, you know what? Like you said, got tickets for this, but the last minute thing is highly, highly indicative that something, that you're not special to this person.
Yeah,
And
and
so
it
many
reminds me
women
of,
go along with it.
yeah, it reminds me of the booty call,
Yes. Well, that's what,
right?
yeah.
It's basically in a
Mm-hmm.
more innocuous framing.
Yeah, last minute plans, again, it's kind of rude, really,
Yeah.
if you look at it that way. I mean, if it's a consistent pattern, they just give you enough to keep you interested, or you keep coming back to where they're not letting go of you because they don't want to let go of you for whatever reason, but they also don't want to commit to
Well,
you. And
yeah, and they know how to, we're back to manipulation. They don't want to, they've already got you hooked. They're going to wring it dry. Don't
Mhm,
let them. We let them. We let them. We don't have to let them. First, we have to see that it's happening. Two,
mhm.
we have to know we deserve so much more. Three, we have to trust that if we let go of this thing, something better will appear. It's always fear that keeps us locked into these manipulative relationships. So,
Exactly. Well, and if you do stop or tell them, you know what, I'm not putting up with this anymore. This is unacceptable. And then they might turn around and all of a sudden, give you more attention, which maybe, let's look at the good in everybody. Maybe they saw the light and, oh, that's what I was doing. Again, probably not if this is consistent.
but it is a good
And
point that you made. Ask for what you want. You'll either get it or you'll get a no, and you'll have your answer either way.
it's
Yeah.
the fear of whatever you have going away because you do like this person. You want this to work. You don't want to see the red flags. Then surface level conversations is another sign they list here. Does your relationship or lack thereof feel shallow? A breadcrumber may give you compliments or buy you flowers, but they're not trying to take anything to the next step. It's always very basic, very surface, nothing deep.
Yeah. Again, I mean, it's kind of a reiteration of what we talked about, which is their behavior is about getting what they want.
And the obvious question is, and we've addressed it a little bit, why do people do this? Why would somebody do this? It largely it's to fill their own weak or whatever needy ego, that they want to know somebody is dependent on them or there for them, even though they don't want to make the commitment.
And when we say they, we mean male and female. We're not
Oh,
this.
absolutely. This is not just a yeah. This is not
Yeah.
just a
So
man thing.
there is a power grab in there. There's
Yeah.
a manipulation, control, power over this person somehow. And so that tells me that person has a very low self-esteem
Mm-hmm.
and a huge ego.
Mm-hmm.
Low self-esteem, huge ego, very bad combination, usually doesn't end well for that person in terms of true happiness.
And then of course the fear of commitment or just not being ready to commit and just not being that into you, but not wanting to be alone. Also, it's very
Listen,
unfair.
listen, if you're out there and you don't want a committed relationship, you were in a relationship for decades, didn't
Mm-hmm.
end well, and you just want to go and have fun then be
Mm-hmm.
honest about it.
Right.
Absolutely do that. There is nothing malignant about that.
Mm-hmm.
Have fun, but be honest. I'm just dating right now. But be honest. Be in integrity and in alignment
Mm-hmm.
with what it is that matters to you. And then as long as that's true, they then have a choice.
Yeah, don't send mixed signals. Don't lead somebody on. That's what's called leading you on, the breadcrumbing.
Yeah.
You're allowing this person to believe that there is hope or a chance that this is going to go somewhere,
Yeah.
and you leave them unclear and questioning, and it's a really, really, I was going to say shitty, a really, really bad place for that person to be emotionally. It's not fair. So what do you do about it? How do you stop? What do you do if you find yourself being breadcrumbed? And as it's written here, and I think we've said that the first step, recognizing the pattern, that this is happening to you.
If this you think is happening to you, go to your best friend, go to your sister, go to your brother, tell them the situation because you are inside the blender and you can't see the ingredients right now. Find a trusted voice outside yourself and say, this is what I think this is happening. Is this happening? What do I do?
Yeah.
Stop. First,
Mm-hmm.
stop and become aware. So that's we're
Mm-hmm.
back to wake up.
Well, and then spend time reflecting. I think they even mentioned that here's the second step. That look at the relationship dynamic. Is this even good? Do you really even want this?
Right.
Is this a person that you really want to be with? Do you want this to go on like that, or is it because? Well, and this happens to me, is because you can't have it for some reason. Now you want something that is not quite in your grasp. But yeah, is this something you truly want?
So there we are again. Stop.
Yeah.
Become aware of how you feel when you're with this other human being. Does this other human being pull forth the best you? Not the anxious one, not the fearful one, not the freaked out one. Do they pull forth the best you?
the whole thing with this breadcrumbing cycle, you're just so uncomfortable. You're not. You
You're
don't
off
feel
kilter.
good. You're off kilter, and which is a huge sign that you have to do something about it for your own sanity. And that's really the third point here, is that if you decide, I do like this person, I like the way we hit it off, I like what he does, and I keep saying you're right, this can go both ways. Absolutely, can this go both ways? Although when it comes to breadcrumbing, I just want to say, because the male or the man is typically in the pursuit situation, and I know that's all supposed to change, blah blah blah, but it still is, especially for our age group. That's why it maybe is more prevalent for men doing it than women. And you can certainly disagree with me. Leave it in the comments. I really do want to hear, but that's it's my opinion where I stand, where I stand today,
And you have a
anyway.
right to stand there.
And yeah, and I have a right to do that. And but have a conversation with them. Just go, hey, here's an open conversation. Ask for clarity.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of people avoid. Again, you've just said this
Right.
already a million times here. Fear. It's fear. You
Yes.
don't want to
So,
lose.
so
Mhm.
put forth in a loving way, in an accountable way, not you're a breadcrumber. Put forth in a loving way. Here's what I'm noticing, and here's how
Mhm.
what I would like to see
Yeah.
happen in a relationship. And is there anything that I can do better in our relationship? So you turn it around too, and you say, okay, now I'd like some feedback. And if he's like, well, you have your answer. Don't be afraid to ask to have your needs met. And sometimes, honestly, men love to know how to please you. Like, what is it you do want? They don't want to lose you because of something that they could have fixed.
Right. If they're
Again,
serious, they don't. And
yeah,
that's the thing. If
exactly.
if if you do have that conversation, you do ask because you just can't go on like this anymore. And you don't get the clarity, you don't hear what you want, then it's time to leave. It's that simple. It's that simple. So, but I wanted to touch on breadcrumbing again, because it happens so much, especially in this online world that we live in now. And so many people are experiencing it, and so many people are hurt by it. So, Joni, thank you so much. I always appreciate your time. I will link to your podcast, Wake Up with Joni, to your book sitting here right behind me, Stop, Look, Choose. And most importantly, if you want to get in touch with Joni directly, if you want to coach with Joni, as so many of our people have already done, then there's a Calendly link in the show notes. Please go see that. It'll go directly to Joni. And Joni, I look forward to seeing you again soon on Second Act TV.